What if Padre Pio saw a darkness rising over every nation, not in a dream, but in the late years of his life in San Giovanni Rotondo, a silence heavy enough to break the heart of the world, a war no human eye could see, yet every soul could feel. He once trembled when speaking of what moved above us. Angels fighting, shadows gathering, humanity standing between two kingdoms. A bishop understands this ache, the ache of a world that forgets the light, and the fear of a soul that no longer recognizes danger. Stay with this message. You will understand what Padre Pio witnessed. You will learn why it matters now, and you will discover what this battle means for your own soul, but only if you remain until the end. He lived many years in a silence few could bear, the kind of silence that weighs on the soul, the kind that reveals what the world tries to forget. In the 1950s, in the dim corridors of San Giovanni Rotondo, Padre Pio carried wounds deeper than the ones on his body. He carried the wounds of a world drifting from God. He prayed through nights when hope felt thin. He listened for the faint cry of souls losing their way. This is the part many overlook. Before the vision broke open, there was a long struggle within his heart, a grief for humanity, a longing for every person to recognize the danger rising around them. And when Father Pellegrino stood beside him during those quiet years, he often saw a man who suffered, not for himself, but for the darkness tightening around the nations. Every saint bears a hidden cross. Padre Pio bore the cross of seeing too clearly, seeing the invisible weight pressing upon the earth, seeing the sorrow of souls unprepared for battle. What he would witness soon after did not appear suddenly. It emerged from years of prayer, years of anguish, years of watching humanity walk closer to the edge without knowing what waited beyond. And when the vision finally came, it struck him with a force that shook his spirit. A force we must understand if we hope to stand in the light he defended. Many wonder what finally pierced his spirit, what moment shattered the quiet years of waiting. It happened without warning. One evening, as prayer settled over the room, Padre Pio lifted his gaze as if something unseen had entered the air. Father Pellegrino watched him freeze, not in fear, but in a sorrow deeper than words. He was shown a realm unfolding above the earth, not a dream, not imagination. A realm charged with forces contending for the human heart. He saw radiant beings, struggling with powers bent on ruin. He saw movements that shook the very edges of creation. He saw a conflict stretching beyond borders, igniting battles for countless lives who never realized their peril. What struck him most was not the fury of that struggle, but how quietly it touched ordinary people. Families unaware of what pressed upon them. Believers losing strength without knowing why. Good men and women pulled toward choices that drained their peace. This was the pain that seized him. The realization that so many souls stood in the path of forces they could not name. Forces that drained hope, dimmed conscience, and whispered lies meant to scatter the faithful. Padre Pio understood that such a revelation was not given for curiosity. It was a call, a summons born from heaven's urgency, meant to wake those drifting into quiet danger. And as the vision grew clearer, he recognized a truth he would later share. Every person, regardless of faith or tradition, was caught in this unseen struggle. What he discovered in that moment sets the stage for the deepest part of this message, because the revelation that followed was not only vast in scale, but demanded a decision from every soul who hears it. What startled him most was not the conflict itself. It was the moment he realized what stood at the center of it. Every soul was being drawn toward a decision, a quiet turning, a hidden allegiance, a choice that shaped destiny more than any earthly crown. Padre Pio understood this with piercing clarity. Human beings were not spectators, they were participants. Their lives, their desires, their loyalties formed the ground upon which this struggle unfolded. He sensed a truth that pressed heavily on the shepherd's heart. When a person drifts without direction, someone else chooses for them. And the forces he witnessed sought that vulnerability with relentless intent. This is why he spoke with such gravity in the later years of his ministry. He saw humanity standing between two realms, not as observers, but as children asked to choose their king. Not a king of nations, not a ruler fashioned by ideology, but the one who brings life, or the one who steals it. And Padre Pio noticed something heartbreaking. Many people believed they could walk untouched, as if neutrality were possible, as if the heart could remain unclaimed. But in the vision, there was no middle ground. This was not a threat. It was a revelation of dignity. Every person bore a worth so immense that heaven and darkness contended for them. A worth that demanded awareness, courage, and a return to truth. What he recognized in that hour must be understood before anything else. Because without this foundation, the scriptural meaning of the struggle cannot be grasped. And that meaning is what awaits us now. How do we understand a struggle we cannot see? Not by imagination, but by the word that exposes the hidden world. St. Paul spoke with unshakable certainty. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against powers that seek the soul. Ephesians did not whisper this truth. It declared it with urgency. And in the vision shown to Padre Pio, that ancient teaching came alive with a clarity few ever face. The battlefield he witnessed matched the very pattern revealed in Scripture. Revelation speaks of a woman crowned with glory and a dragon poised to strike. A cosmic conflict that touches the lives of ordinary people who never imagine they stand within its shadow. Christ himself warned his disciples to remain awake, for the thief approaches when hearts grow dull. It was not fear, he taught, but readiness. These passages are not symbols to admire. They are mirrors for the present moment, signals for the weary believer who wonders why the journey feels heavy. Padre Pio saw those truths etched into the world above him. He understood that Scripture was not describing a distant age, but the spiritual climate pressing upon his own generation. And what gripped him was how few recognized its weight, how many lived unaware of the deeper forces shaping their choices. Before we enter the heart of his warning, we must stand on this foundation, because without it, the message that follows cannot be fully received. What does heaven reveal when a soul is ready to hear what others ignore? Padre Pio learned this in a way few ever will. During those later years, he often spoke with a weight in his voice, as if carrying something entrusted to him alone. He never dramatized it, he simply carried it, like a shepherd guarding a truth too serious to neglect. Those near him noticed subtle moments when his eyes would lift, as if listening to a realm beyond human sound. Not startled, not frightened, attentive, alert to a guidance ordinary minds overlook. He once talked that grace warns before danger unfolds, that heaven does not remain silent when souls drift toward harm. And in that silence of prayer, he sensed movements not born of earth. There were signs he recognized, a heaviness that settled over communities, a weariness among believers that had no physical cause, a rising confusion that clouded judgment and drained conviction. These were not random struggles. They were signals, whispers from the unseen realm that something pressed closer to humanity than most dared to admit. Padre Pio understood those signals as part of a larger summons, a call urging believers to return to vigilance, to reclaim the courage that faith requires in difficult times. And though he carried this knowledge quietly, its urgency never left him. He felt the burden, especially for those who no longer sensed when their peace was being stolen. What followed in his final insights touches the deeper wound of our age, a wound that must be faced before hope can be restored. There is a wound in our time that few are willing to name. It is not only sin. It is not only temptation. It is a kind of inner sleep, a numbness that settles over the spirit until even the thought of God feels distant and unreal. Padre Pio saw this with deep sorrow. He watched people move through their days, busy, surrounded, connected, yet starved for meaning. He met believers who still recited their prayers, but felt no fire within them. He sensed a chill where devotion once burned bright. This quiet erosion pained him more than open rejection, because when the heart grows indifferent, it no longer notices what is gained or lost. It stops asking questions. It stops seeking help. Many carried hidden loneliness, even while living in crowded homes. Many hid their fear behind work, entertainment, or endless conversation. Yet deep within, they wondered if anyone truly saw them, if their life truly mattered. This is the part almost no one speaks about. The invisible fatigue of the spirit, the slow fading of desire for holiness, the sense that nothing will ever change, so surrender feels easier than hope. Padre Pio held these burdens before the Lord. He knew that unless this inner heaviness was brought into the light, no vision, no warning, no teaching could fully take root. And it is precisely into this hidden place that the mercy he was shown begins to shine most clearly. What breaks the darkness when every path feels heavy? For Padre Pio, the answer came in a way that stunned him. Amid the weight he carried, he was shown something that changed the entire meaning of what he had witnessed. Not terror, not despair, but a mercy large enough to hold the wounded world. He saw messengers of light moving with a tenderness that defied the violence around them. They guarded souls who did not even know they were being protected. They strengthened hearts on the verge of surrender. They lifted the weary before the weary understood their struggle. This is the part so many overlook. Grace was not distant. It was active. It was deliberate. It reached into moments where confusion felt permanent and whispered courage into places fear had hollowed out. Padre Pio realized that no soul stands alone in this conflict. Not the elder searching for peace. Not the believer fighting discouragement. Not the person praying in silence for someone who has lost their way. He saw that heaven moves with far more compassion than humanity dares to believe, and that every sacrament of the Church carries an armor far stronger than earthly defenses. This insight restored a depth of hope he longed to share with God's people. A hope rooted not in emotion, but in the certainty that divine help surrounds the faithful even when their strength falters. And this mercy, unseen yet unceasing, sets the stage for the reason this vision matters so urgently today. Why does this vision speak so urgently to our age? Because the pressures Padre Pio sensed long ago now shape the very atmosphere we breathe. There is a burden on hearts today that has no physical source, a tiredness that lingers even after rest, a confusion that clouds judgment before people know they are drifting. These currents grow quietly, through habits that numb conscience, through noise that silences wisdom, through choices made in moments when faith feels thin. Padre Pio recognized these movements as signs of a deeper struggle. Not a prophecy of disaster, but a reminder that souls are influenced long before they are aware. The vision matters now because subtle forces shape the culture around us. They weaken conviction, dull spiritual hunger, and tempt the weary to surrender what is sacred. This is not meant to frighten. It is meant to awaken. For no one is invisible in this unseen conflict. Every life carries weight. Every decision shifts direction. And the meaning of that truth draws us toward the message Padre Pio held with such gravity. What stands at the center of his warning is not despair, but a crossroads. Padre Pio understood that each person is drawn toward a ruler, not a political leader, but a spiritual allegiance, a quiet yes or a quiet surrender. He saw that neutrality was the great illusion of the age. The heart cannot remain unclaimed. It leans toward light or drifts toward what diminishes it. This realization struck him deeply. Because so many believed their choices were small, their struggles insignificant, their temptations harmless. Yet in what he witnessed, every gesture of the soul mattered. Every act of trust, every moment of prayer, every refusal of sin pushed back against shadows seeking to dull human dignity. The call he carried was not a command, but an invitation. To choose the one who heals the wounded heart, to return to the presence that restores strength. And this choice, simple yet eternal, forms the core of the vision entrusted to him. It is here that the struggle becomes personal, not distant, not symbolic, but woven into the very life of every believer who longs for peace. What does a soul do when it finally understands the weight of this battle? Padre Pio offered no complicated plan. He pointed toward the ordinary paths that carry extraordinary grace. Return to prayer even when the heart feels dry. Receive the Eucharist with deeper reverence. Seek forgiveness before wounds harden. Practice mercy in moments when pride resists it. These small acts do more than comfort the spirit. They anchor the believer in the presence of the one who strengthens the weak and restores the weary. Padre Pio believed that holiness begins quietly, in choices few notice, but heaven sees clearly. And this is where courage grows, where clarity returns, and where the soul learns to walk with peace, even in uncertain times. You have reached the heart of this reflection. Carry its grace gently and let it steady your soul in the days ahead. In the comments, write, Lord, strengthen my heart to choose your light today. Your words become a public prayer, a witness of faith, and a small act of courage that may raise someone who feels unseen in their struggle. And when you finish this message, we invite you to explore the 4 powerful videos now waiting on your screen. Each one can lead you deeper into the light that guides every believer.